The crowd did not breathe. Thousands of eyes watched the small figure step into the center of the arena. The air was thick with heat, dust, and tension. The sound of the steel gates closing behind her echoed like thunder. Then silence. Her name was Ellen Ward. Human, female, height barely 1.6 meters. Weight too light to be a fighter, too fragile to stand among monsters. And yet, there she was, standing straight under the twin suns of Varkesh Prime, the blood world. The arena floor was rough and stained with old marks, burned scratches, and dried fluids that were once alive. Around her, stone walls rose high, filled with thousands of alien shapes. Some had horns, some had wings, some shimmered with scales that glowed like molten gold. They had all come for one thing, to watch the human die. Ellen did not move. Her breathing was calm, her hands loose by her sides. She wore a simple combat uniform, no armor, no weapon, just fabric and skin. A mark burned faintly on her shoulder, the symbol of Earth Command, the unit that had captured her and sold her to the warlords. To them, she was entertainment. To the crowd, she was a weak curiosity. Above, in a private box made of dark glass, sat Warlord Kralthon, ruler of Varkesh Prime. His massive form leaned forward in interest. His 4 yellow eyes narrowed. He had seen many creatures die in his arena, but never a human. The species was still new to the galaxy. Soft, emotional, and foolish. They were not made for war, he thought. But something about this one was different. The gates at the far end of the arena began to rise. The sound was like a growl of metal. From the shadows emerged a beast. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, echoing off the walls. Presenting the champion of the Ktharn Horde, Ragged the Splitter, the ground trembled. The creature that stepped out was 3 times Ellen's height. Its body was made of muscle and plated bone, for arms ended in hooked claws. Its mouth stretched wide, rows of teeth flashing like blades. The crowd roared with excitement. Ragged slammed one of his claws into the ground, sending dust flying. "Tiny prey," it hissed. "I will make it quick." Ellen said nothing. She looked up at the beast, calm, unblinking. Then she spoke softly, her voice steady. "You can try." The crowd laughed. Even the warlord let out a low, rumbling chuckle. A human challenging Ragath? Ridiculous. The gong sounded, deep and powerful. The beast charged. It moved fast for its size, claws slicing through the air. The sound was like thunder tearing the sky. But Ellen wasn't there. She had already moved. Her step was small, silent, perfect. Ragatha's claws hit the sand where she had been standing a moment before. The crowd gasped. Ellen's eyes locked on her opponent. In that moment, something changed. The calm in her face turned sharp. She dropped low, rolled forward, and struck. One blow. To the eyes of most watchers, it was too fast to see. But those who did see, the veterans, the hunters, the soldiers, leaned forward in disbelief. She had struck a point just below the creature's jaw. The blow was clean, quiet, and deadly. Ragged staggered back, blinking. Then it roared and swung again, this time faster, angrier. Ellen moved like water, flowing between strikes. She didn't waste motion. Every step had purpose. Every turn avoided death by a breath. The crowd, once laughing, now watched in silence. Ragatha's last swing missed. Ellen slipped inside its guard and hit its throat again. The sound was a soft crack. The creature froze. For a heartbeat, the whole arena seemed to stop moving. Then Ragath fell, like a mountain breaking apart, face first into the sand. Dust rose. Silence followed. Ellen stood over the body, her chest rising and falling slowly. Her face showed no pride, no fear, no hate. She simply turned to face the warlord's box. From the shadows above, Crawthon's eyes glowed brighter. He leaned forward, his deep voice rumbling through the comms. Impossible. The announcer didn't speak. The crowd didn't cheer. No one understood what had just happened. A human had just defeated a creature bred for war. Somewhere in the stands, a small sound broke the silence. It came from the child section, a young alien cub sitting on its father's shoulder. The cub's voice was soft, but clear enough to be heard through the still air. "Papa," it whispered, eyes wide, "why is the apex wearing human skin?" The word seemed to hang in the air like a spell. The father's face turned pale. The creatures around him looked at one another. "What did it say?" someone asked. "The apex," another echoed. Every creature in the stands turned their gaze back to the human in the arena. She was still standing there, calm, still, breathing softly. But now, as the wind blew across her face, her eyes seemed to shine a strange gold for a second, so brief that most thought a trick of light. Crawthon's claws dug into the armrest. His heart beat faster. He had seen that glow once before, in the ancient wars, in the recordings that were never meant to be shown again. It couldn't be. The apex were gone, extinct, wiped out by the galaxy itself. And yet, standing alone in the silent arena, the human raised her head and smiled. The word apex spread to the crowd like fire through dry grass. One whisper became 100. 100 became a storm. In seconds, the silence of the arena turned into a wave of confused murmurs and gasps. High above, behind the reinforced glass of the warlord's box, Crawthon's eyes narrowed. His massive body leaned forward, claws clicking against the armrest. He turned toward his advisor, a thin, gray-skinned creature named Veshtal. "Did you hear what that cub said?" he asked quietly. Veshtal nodded nervously. "Yes, my lord. It said the human wears the skin of an apex." The warlord's four yellow eyes flashed. "That's impossible. The apex had been extinct for over 1,000 cycles." Down in the arena, Ellen Ward still stood motionless beside the fallen beast. Her calm gaze swept across the stands. She didn't smile this time. She didn't speak. The crowd's whispers grew louder, uncertain, afraid. Every eye that met hers turned away. The announcer's voice finally broke the tension, his tone shaky. "T. the victor, Ellen Ward, representative of..." He hesitated. "Earth." No cheer followed. The word Earth sounded small, weak, almost insulting in that grand place of monsters and killers. Ellen raised her head slightly, looking at the warlord's box. She knew those eyes were on her. She could feel them. Her heartbeat was steady, but inside, something was stirring, something she had long buried under layers of training and discipline. "Not now," she told herself. "Stay calm. Stay human." The warlord's private chamber was cold and dark. Veshtal adjusted the holographic screen as the fight replayed in slow motion. The moment Ellen moved, the speed, the precision, the strength, all recorded in sharp detail. Crawthon watched silently. The motion trackers showed inhuman results. Every step was faster than physics allowed. Her heart rate never spiked. Her breathing stayed even while she broke the neck of a creature that could crush stone. "She doesn't move like a human," Veshtal said. "She doesn't move like anything," Crawthon growled. The warlord's claw tapped against the screen. "Find out everything about her. Where she came from. Who trained her. I want answers." "Yes, my lord," Veshtal said quickly, but Crawthon wasn't finished. His voice dropped to a low rumble. "And bring me the cub who spoke those words. I want to know why a child would recognize the apex when no one alive has ever seen one." In the lower cells of the arena, Ellen sat alone. The light above her flickered with a soft buzz. Her uniform was torn, but her face was calm. She leaned back against the cold wall, eyes half closed, remembering. Flashes, fire, screams. A world not made of steel and concrete, but of silver forests and endless skies. She saw figures moving to the light, tall, perfect, deadly. They called her something then, something she couldn't remember. She tried to hold the image, but it slipped away like smoke. The door hissed open. 2 guards entered, reptilian soldiers in black armor. "Move," one said, aiming a plasma rifle at her chest. Ellen stood up slowly. Her eyes met his. The guard stiffened for a second, then looked away, pretending not to notice the way his fingers shook on the trigger. They led her through metal halls lined with cages. Other prisoners, alien warriors, pirates, beasts, stared as she passed. Some hissed insults. Others just watched in silence. Ellen ignored them all until she saw a small figure sitting alone behind bars. The same cub who had spoken in the arena. The child looked up as she passed, wide golden eyes reflecting the dim lights. "You're not human," the cub whispered. Ellen stopped. "What did you say?" The guards pushed her forward. "Keep moving." But the cub's voice followed, soft and sure. "Your apex. I can smell it." Ellen froze for a heartbeat, then continued walking. Inside her mind, the word struck like thunder. Apex. The word felt familiar, like a key unlocking something hidden deep inside her. In the warlord's command chamber, the air smelled of ozone and blood. Kralthon paced back and forth while holographic records played around him. Ancient war footage, fragments from a forgotten age. The apex, the perfect predators, the galaxy's first hunters. They didn't conquer for power. They hunted for balance. And when the other species united against them, they vanished, erased, burned from history. Until now, Veshtal entered, trembling. "My lord, the data is strange. Her genetic file shows human DNA. Yes, but there are layers that we cannot read, codes that rewrite themselves." Kralthon stopped pacing. "You mean she's hiding something inside her biology?" "Yes, something alive." The warlord turned toward the viewing window overlooking the arena floor, where Ellen was now being led away in chains. He spoke softly, more to himself than to his advisor. "If that woman truly carries the apex blood, then the galaxy has made a mistake keeping her alive." In her cell again, Ellen sat on the cold floor. Her mind burned with questions she couldn't answer. The cub's words echoed over and over. "Your apex." She closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. Deep inside, beneath her skin, something shifted. Just for a second, the faint shimmer of scales rippled down her arms, then vanished. She opened her eyes and whispered to the empty room. "What am I?" Above her, in the dark observation deck, Kralthon watched her through hidden cameras. His voice was low, his expression unreadable. "Whatever you are human," he said quietly, "you're not supposed to exist." The lights dimmed. The world fell silent again, and the legend of the apex began to wake. The dreams came again. Ellen Ward stood in a world of silver trees and burning skies. The air shimmered with light and heat, and she could hear them. The voices, deep, echoing, calling her name, but not Ellen. Another name, one she couldn't remember when she woke. In the dream, her hands glowed with fire. Around her feet, the ground cracked open, bleeding light instead of blood. Shapes moved through the smoke, tall, strong, fast. They looked like her, but not human. Golden eyes, dark skin made of something not quite flesh. And in the center of them all stood one figure, a reflection of her, older, colder, and terrible. "You forgot who you are," it said, voice calm and sharp as a blade. "They made you weak. They wrapped the hunter in chains." Ellen reached out. "Who are you?" The figure smiled, the same smile Ellen had seen in the arena before the fight. I am what's left of you. The ground burst into fire. She fell through it and woke up screaming. Cold air filled her lungs. The ceiling above was metal, cracked and humming with power. She was back in her cell. Her heart pounded, sweat dripping down her neck. The lights flickered again. The guards were gone. Only silence surrounded her, except for the faint hum of machinery. She rubbed her temples, trying to steady her breathing. "It's just a dream," she whispered. But the voice in her mind answered, soft and cold. No, a memory. Ellen stood up and walked to the wall. The metal surface shimmered faintly with energy. She placed her hand against it, and for a moment her palm left a faint glowing mark. It faded quickly, but she had seen it. That same glow was in her dream. She didn't understand what was happening to her. She had been trained, broken, rebuilt by the Earth Command after being found near a crashed pod 12 years ago. They had told her she was lucky to be alive. But sometimes, when she looked at her reflection, she didn't see herself. She saw something else, something watching back. Up in the Warlord's command center, Crawthon stared at the holographic projection of her cell. The sensors were spiking again. The readings made no sense. Energy signatures higher than a plasma engine, coming from her heartbeat. Veshtal stood beside him, shaking slightly. "Her vitals are unstable, my lord. She's not like any prisoner we've had." Crawthon grunted. "Not unstable. Evolving." He remembered the stories. The apex who could survive worlds collapsing, who could burn fleets with their bare hands. Beasts were in the faces of gods. If the human really carried that blood, then the Warlord's empire stood on the edge of extinction. "Prepare the containment chamber," Crawthon said. "If she wakes up, I want her alive. No mistakes." In the lower halls, the cub who whispered in the arena sat alone in a corner, guarded by soldiers. The child's fur was dull from fear. One of the guards muttered, "Why would a cub speak of the apex? That word is forbidden." The cub only shook his head. "I saw her eyes," he whispered. The light was the same as the stories. "What stories?" the guard asked. "The old ones," the cub said softly. "The ones about the hunters who protected the balance, before the warlords came." The guard said nothing more. He didn't believe in stories. Not anymore. But far above them, in her cell, the story was waking up again. Ellen felt something stirring under her skin. A pulse. A rhythm that wasn't hers. She gritted her teeth and tried to stay calm. But every breath brought flashes, images of battlefields, burning ships, strange stars. She saw herself moving like lightning, claws made of light, tearing through enemies she didn't recognize. She fell to her knees. Her bones burned. Her heart felt like a drum. Her veins glowed faintly under her skin. She screamed, but no sound came out. The energy grew stronger until her restraints cracked. The metal cuffs snapped apart like paper. When she finally looked up, the walls of her cell were scorched with marks that looked like claws. Her voice trembled. "What are you doing to me?" The cold voice in her mind answered again, clearer this time. "Not doing. Remembering." Ellen pressed her hands to her head. "Who are you?" "You know me." The voice said, "You buried me the day they found you. You wanted to be human. You wanted peace. But the hunt never forgets." She stood slowly, her breathing deep, steady. Her eyes flickered gold again. "You are the last apex, hidden in human flesh." And the galaxy fears were forgot. In the control room, alarms suddenly began to scream. Veshtal shouted, "Containment breach!" Energy surged from the human cell. Crawthon bared his fangs. "Activate stasis fields." But the screens filled with static. The cameras went dead one by one. The warlord leaned forward, growling. "What is she doing?" The last screen showed Ellen standing alone in the ruined cell. The lights flickered as her shadow stretched across the wall. Not human, but something larger, sharper, ancient. For the first time in his life, Crawthon felt fear. "She's remembering," he whispered. "The Apex is remembering." Ellen's voice echoed through the dark corridor beyond her cell, calm and cold. "You made me forget what I was. You wanted me to be your weapon, but I am not your creation." She looked up at the camera, her eyes glowing bright gold now. "I am the reason your ancestors built walls." Then the power grid failed completely. The arena went dark, and from somewhere deep inside the fortress, the first true roar of an apex in 1,000 years shook the stars. The warlord's fortress had never been this silent. The lights flickered, alarms blinked, but no one dared to speak. The soldiers who guarded the lower cells stood frozen in place, their weapons aimed at shadows that no longer moved. The human was gone. The cell was in ruins, walls melted, the metal twisted as if crushed by invisible claws. The scent of ozone and burnt circuits filled the air. Warlord Crawthon stood at the center of the control room, his eyes glowing like molten gold. His voice, low and sharp, cut through the fear. "Seal every gate. Lock down the fortress. No one leaves until we find her." His advisor, Veshtal, nodded quickly. "Yes, my lord. But if she truly is what the cub said." Crawthon's claws slammed down on the console. The metal cracked under his hand. "Do not say it." Veshtal swallowed hard. "The readings match the old records, my lord. The energy signature, the speed, the transformation, it's identical. She's not human. She's Apex." The room went still. No one breathed. Even the machines seemed to hesitate. Hours later, in the War Council chamber, 12 alien leaders gathered around a circular table. They represented the most powerful empires of the sector, scaled, winged, armored, and ancient. The meeting was urgent, and fear was already in the air. At the center, a holographic image flickered to life. Ellen Ward, standing in her cell, eyes glowing faint gold. Her human skin seemed thin, fragile, like a disguise over something waiting beneath. The hologram froze mid-frame. Crawthon's voice rumbled through the room. "This is the creature you saw fight in the arena, the human who killed Ragged the Splitter. Our sensors recorded an energy surge equal to a battle cruiser's engine output, coming from her heartbeat." The council members shifted uneasily. One of them, a feathered elder named Rinsei, spoke first. "That energy, it cannot exist in human biology." Veshtal turned toward her. "It doesn't. The patterns match the Apex genome." Gasps rippled around the table. Someone hissed, "Impossible. The Apex were destroyed long ago." "Destroyed," Crawthon said, "or hidden?" The room fell quiet again. Crawthon gestured, and another hologram appeared. Old recordings, grainy and dark. The footage showed worlds burning under golden fire. Massive creatures, half-light, half-flesh, moving faster than the eye could follow. Their voices roared like thunder. Fleets tried to fight them and failed. "This," Crawthon said, "is the last known record of the Apex Wars. 1,000 cycles ago. They were not conquerors. They hunted those who upset the balance of creation. But when the great empires rose, they turned against them. The Apex vanished. We believed extinction was our victory." He pointed to the frozen image of Ellen. "But one survived." Rinsei whispered. "How could she hide among humans?" Veshtal replied, "The humans are new to the stars. They might never have known. Perhaps she fell to their world long ago, forgetting what she was." Another counselor spoke, voice trembling. "If she remembers now..." Crawthon finished the thought. "Then the hunt will begin again." Meanwhile, far below the fortress, soldiers searched the dark halls. The air shimmered with residual energy, making their scanners useless. Every corner whispered with sound. Footsteps that weren't there, breathing that wasn't human. A young soldier pointed to a scorch mark on the wall. "Sir, this pattern's like claws." The commander leaned closer. 4 long marks, melted into the steel, still smoking faintly. He frowned. No weapon can do that. Behind them, the lights flickered once, twice, then a shadow moved. They turned. Nothing there, but the sound of a slow, steady breath came from the dark. "Stay sharp," the commander barked. And then something moved behind them, too fast to see, too silent to stop. The lights went out completely. Screams echoed for 1 second. Only one. When the lights returned, the corridor was empty. Only the smell of burned air remained. Back in the council chamber, the discussion had turned to panic. "We must destroy her before she grows stronger," one shouted. "She killed our champion barehanded," another cried. "She's not human. She's death wrapped in flesh." Crawthon raised his hand. The room went silent. "No," he said quietly. "We do not destroy her. Not yet." The others looked confused. Crawthon's eyes burned brighter. "If she remembers who she truly is, then she also remembers her enemies. Perhaps we can use her before she remembers too much." Veshtal hesitated. "And if she refuses? Then," Crawthon said softly, "we'll remind her why her kind died." Far away, outside the fortress walls, Ellen moved through the wastelands. The night wind carried the smell of rust and fire. She walked barefoot, leaving faint glowing prints that faded slowly behind her. Her mind was chaos. Flashes of war, fragments of memory, whispers of names she couldn't pronounce. She felt something calling her, a presence deep within the stars. "Come home." Her eyes glowed again for a heartbeat, and the wind around her shifted. Small creatures in the dark fled at her passing. The air itself seemed to recognize her. For the first time, Ellen whispered the word that had haunted her dreams. Apex. She didn't know if it was her curse or her truth, but somewhere, far across the galaxy, ancient systems long thought dead flickered to life. Beacons that had slept for 1,000 years awakened one by one. Each sent the same signal, a single pulse of light. The apex had returned, and the galaxy began to remember its fear. The desert stretched endlessly under the twin moons. Ellen walked alone through the dust, barefoot and silent. Her shadow moved strangely in the pale light, longer, sharper, almost alive. Every few steps, the wind howled, whispering words she didn't understand. Behind her, the ruins of Crawthon's fortress still burned. She didn't remember escaping. One moment, she had been trapped in her cell. The next, the walls had melted away, and everything had gone white. Now, only silence and the smell of ash remained in her mind. She stopped on a ridge. In the distance, she could see the great city of Varkesh, shining like glass and metal under the stars. The warlord's world, a place built on fear and blood. Her fists tightened. Her heart beat faster. For a second, she felt that same strange pulse from before, the one that wasn't hers, the one that felt older. The hunt is not over. Ellen dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Her skin burned. Her eyes blurred. She could feel it under her flesh. Something trying to wake, something that wasn't human. "No," she whispered. "I'm not that. I'm not a monster." But her reflection in the metal sand said otherwise. Her eyes glowed gold. Far above, in orbit around the planet, Crawthon's battle cruiser followed her signal. Veshtal stood at the radar screen, his voice shaky. "Her trail keeps vanishing, my lord. Every few minutes, it's as if she disappears completely." Crawthon's claws tapped the edge of the console. "She's learning to hide. Instinct. Yes, Crawthon said. Apex instincts. They were never trained. They were born knowing how to hunt. The warlord turned to the viewing window, staring down at the glowing desert. Find her before she remembers how to kill. Ellen climbed down a rocky slope into a narrow canyon. The wind died here. The silence was deep and heavy. She leaned against a stone wall, trembling. Her body felt strange, stronger and lighter at once. Her hearing had sharpened. She could hear the heartbeat of something small hiding behind a rock 20 meters away. She didn't want to hurt it, but her muscles tensed on their own, the air filled with the scent of blood and fear. "No," she whispered again, gripping her head. "I'm not like them. I'm not." Her voice broke. The memory hit her again. The burning sky, the silver forest, the sound of roars and thunder. She remembered standing among them. The apex. She remembered what it felt like to hunt not for food, but for balance, for justice, for survival. But she also remembered the screams of those who feared her kind, the weapons that burned their worlds, the betrayal. She saw flashes of herself falling from the sky, crashing into earth, broken, bleeding, alone, and then darkness. Her hands clawed at the sand. "That's not who I am anymore." The wind shifted. The voice inside her spoke again, calm and steady. "You cannot kill what you are." Her nails lengthened. Her pupils narrowed. Her heartbeat slowed, not from fear, but from control. The apex was waking. Back in the cruiser, Veshtal shouted, "We found her, my lord. Coordinates locked." "Prepare the drop ships," Crawthon ordered. "I want her alive. But if she resists, then you'll see why the galaxy once trembled at her name." The ships descended through the clouds, engines screaming. Their lights cut through the desert darkness like knives. Ellen felt them before she saw them, the hum of metal in the air, the taste of ozone on the wind. She rose to her feet slowly, her golden eyes reflecting the stars. She could hear their fear. Hundreds of soldiers inside the ships, hearts beating too fast, breaths trembling. They thought they were hunting her. They were wrong. The ships landed. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. A loudspeaker boomed. "By order of Warlord Crawthon, you are under arrest. Do not resist." Ellen stood still. Her shadow spread across the sand like liquid fire. "I don't want to fight," she said softly. "Please, don't make me." They fired anyway. The first shot missed. The second hit. Blue plasma burned against her skin, but didn't break it. The soldiers froze. The next moment, Ellen moved. It was not human speed. It was something older, cleaner, terrifying. She leapt forward, grabbing a soldier's weapon and crushing it with one hand. Another tried to strike from behind. She twisted, faster than thought, and sent him flying into a dune. Her eyes burned bright gold now. Her voice was deeper, layered with something ancient. "I said, don't make me." Energy rippled across the ground. The sand turned to glass beneath her feet. The remaining soldiers stumbled back, weapons shaking in their hands. Ellen took one step toward them and stopped. Her hands trembled. Her breathing quickened. She saw their faces, terrified, helpless. The apex in her wanted to finish it. The human in her wanted to run. "No," she whispered. "Not like this." She turned and sprinted into the desert, faster than their scanners could track. The soldiers collapsed, their weapons still glowing from the energy pulse she left behind. On the cruiser, Crawthon watched the footage, silent. His jaw tightened. "She's fighting herself," Veshtal said quietly. "The human and the apex." Crawthon nodded. "For now." He turned away from the screen, his expression dark. "But when the beast wins, no army will stop her." Ellen ran until her legs gave out. She fell to her knees on a cliff overlooking the endless sands. The wind whispered her name, her real name, the one she couldn't yet remember. She looked up at the stars, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "I'm not your weapon," she said to the sky. "I'm not your monster." Far away, in the blackness of space, something ancient answered her with a single pulse of light. The hunt had begun again. The desert was quiet again. Only the wind spoke, carrying whispers across the dunes. Somewhere beneath the rising twin suns, Ellen Ward sat on a stone ridge, her body trembling. Her skin still glowed faintly from the energy she had released hours ago. She didn't know how long she had run. The horizon looked endless, like the edge of another world. The memory of what she'd done, what she had become, burned in her mind. She could still see the soldiers' faces, the fear in their eyes. She whispered. I didn't want to hurt them, but a voice inside her, calm, ancient, answered. You warned them. The weak never listen. Ellen pressed her palms to her temples. Stop. Leave me alone. You cannot silence your nature, the voice said. You can only hide it for so long. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of metal. Ships. She looked up and saw them. 3 massive dropships flying low, approaching fast. The insignia of Crawthon's empire gleamed on their hulls. Her heart sank. They won't stop. The voice in her mind grew softer, colder, then stopped them. High above, aboard the lead ship, Warlord Crawthon stood at the viewport. The desert stretched beneath him like a golden sea. She's there, Veshtal said, pointing at the screen. North Quadrant, Ridge 7. Alone. Crawthon's claws flexed. Prepare the ground troops. If she won't come to us, we'll bring her in pieces. My lord, Veshtal said carefully, our last team didn't return. If she really is... I know what she is, Crawthon snapped, and that's why we end this before the galaxy learns the truth. The ships began to descend, engines burning bright. Ellen watched them come closer. The roar of their thrusters shook the ground beneath her. She could see soldiers jumping out, hundreds of them, weapons flashing in the light. Her pulse quickened. She stood, dust swirling around her feet. She could run, but she knew they would never stop hunting her. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't want to fight. The inner voice replied, You don't have to want it. You were born for it. She closed her eyes. The world slowed. The sound of engines, wind, and heartbeats merged into one deep rhythm, the apex rhythm. When she opened her eyes again, they glowed pure gold. The first soldiers reached the ridge. Target in sight, one shouted. Engaging. Ellen didn't move. Plasma bolts cut through the air, but the moment before they hit, something impossible happened. The air itself seemed to bend around her, as if reality refused to touch her. The shots curved, fizzled, and vanished. Then she moved. It wasn't running. It was like gravity had given up. One instant she was standing still. The next she was among them. Weapons shattered. Soldiers flew through the air as if struck by invisible storms. The dust exploded in every direction, revealing her silhouette. Human shape no longer holding. Her skin shimmered, splitting in patterns of light and shadow. For a heartbeat, scales appeared beneath the human surface, sharp and metallic, reflecting the sun. Her fingers elongated, glowing lines tracing along her veins like molten fire. The soldiers froze. One whispered, Gods, she's changing. Ellen turned toward them, her voice layered with something that was not human. You wanted to see what I am, she said softly. Now you will remember it. Crawthon command ship hovered above, cameras broadcasting the entire scene to the Warlord's control deck. The image flickered, blurred, then focused again, showing the transformation in full. Everyone watching went silent. Veshtal's voice trembled. She's not human anymore. Crawlthon stared, his expression a mix of awe and fear. No, he said quietly. She never was. On the screen, Ellen raised her head. The glow around her body pulsed with power, the ground cracking beneath her feet. Energy rippled through the desert like waves in water. Every living thing for miles felt it, a low vibration, deep and primal, like the heartbeat of a predator too ancient to name. The soldiers tried to regroup. Tanks rolled forward, weapons charged, but nothing they fired mattered. Plasma fire curved away. Missiles slowed midair, twisting like they'd hit invisible walls. Ellen raised her hand, and the missiles fell apart in silence. The apex inside her had fully awakened. The air around her shimmered gold. The desert trembled under her presence. Then she spoke, not to the soldiers, not even to the warlord watching above, but to something greater. I remember now, she said. The fire, the fall, the war you tried to erase. Her voice carried across the desert like thunder. You feared us because you couldn't control us. You called us monsters. But you forgot, monsters don't protect. We did. Her power surged again. The ridge beneath her split open, sand turning into glass. The sky itself seemed to shiver. Crawlthon stepped back from the screen, eyes wide. Shut down the broadcast, he roared. It's too late. Veshtal shouted. Every ship, every network in orbit, they're seeing this. Across the stars, millions of eyes watched as a being thought extinct. The apex stood reborn in golden light. Ellen looked up at the hovering ships. Her eyes softened. I don't want your war, she said. But if you bring it to me, her voice turned dark. I will end it. She raised her hand. The air around the ships rippled. Alarms screamed as systems failed. Energy fields collapsed. Crawlthon's ship shook violently. Retreat, he barked. All forces retreat. But the last thing he saw before the feed went dead was her face, calm, sorrowful, and burning with power. The human mask was gone. The apex had returned. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The sky burned gold. From horizon to horizon, lightning crawled like veins through the clouds. The ground still shook from the power Ellen Ward had released. The soldiers were gone. The dropships had fled. Only silence remained, and her. She stood alone on the cracked ridge, the wind twisting her torn uniform around her legs. Her golden eyes faded back to a soft amber glow. Smoke curled from her hands where power had burned through the skin. The voice inside her spoke again, calm and knowing. Now you remember. Ellen's breathing slowed. I remember, she whispered. I remember everything. The memories poured through her like fire and light. The apex worlds, the ancient battles, the betrayal of the empires, the fall from the sky, her fall, the humans who found her broken body and gave her a name that wasn't hers. Ellen Ward was a mask, a name for something the galaxy had tried to forget. She looked up at the clouds. I was one of them. You still are, the voice said, but you are more now. Above the desert, Crawlthon's flagship drifted in silence. The once mighty warlord stared out the viewport, unable to look away from the storm below. His empire's fleets had gone quiet. No one dared fire again. No one dared speak her name. Veshtal approached slowly. My lord, the networks across the sector are filled with her image. Every system has seen her transformation. The people are calling her. Don't say it, Crawlthon growled. The returned apex. The warlord's jaw tightened. Then they will worship her again. And when they do, every throne in the galaxy will fall. He turned sharply, ready the orbital cannon. If she rises, we strike. We cannot let the apex return. Down below, Ellen heard the distant hum of engines. The air vibrated with an old, familiar rhythm. She knew that sound, the charging of a planetary weapon. She closed her eyes. They still fear what they don't understand. They always did, the voice said. Fear is their only truth. Ellen took a deep breath. The wind swirled around her, carrying grains of sand that glowed faintly in her presence. But this time, she didn't let the apex inside her take over. She didn't need rage. She didn't need war. She needed clarity. She knelt down, pressing one hand against the ground. I'm not here to destroy, she whispered. I'm here to remind them. The power beneath her skin pulsed once, then spread outward like ripples in water. The golden light traveled across the desert floor, sinking into the soil, the stone, the air itself. Far away, across the planet, every living thing looked up. The sky was alive with a pulse of light, gentle, not violent, a heartbeat that touched every creature's soul. The apex had awakened, but not as a weapon, as a memory. On the flagship, alarms blared. My lord, Veshtal shouted. Something's happening to the energy grid. Kralthon turned toward the window. The clouds above the planet had begun to move, slowly spiraling, glowing faintly gold. The cannon's power core flickered, unstable. What is she doing? Interfering with the energy lattice. Veshtal yelled. She's rewriting the field itself. Kralthon slammed his claws on the console. Fire now before she... The ship trembled violently. Every display went black. A blinding light filled the viewport. Ellen stood calm at the center of the storm. Around her, the sky had turned into rivers of light. Every atom, every spark of power the warlord had built, bent toward her will. Her voice echoed through the wind, not loud, but everywhere. You built your empires on fear, she said. You ruled through death. You forgot the balance we gave you. The clouds split open. Her silhouette rose from the ground, surrounded by gold and white flame. The apex was no longer hiding beneath her skin. It had become one with her. I am not your destroyer, she said. I am your mirror, and I will show you what you become. In orbit, Kralthon felt his knees. The light poured through the ship, filling every corridor. Soldiers dropped their weapons, unable to move. They didn't hear words. They felt them. The apex didn't speak to minds. It spoke to the soul. Images flooded their thoughts. The wars they had started, the planets they had burned, the creatures they had enslaved. Every cruelty reflected back at them. Every fear turned to shame. And when the light faded, only silence remained. Kralthon rose slowly, shaking. His voice cracked. She's showing them mercy. Veshtal whispered. No, my lord. She's showing them truth. Back on the surface, the storm began to fade. The twin suns broke through the clouds again, painting the desert in soft light. Ellen stood alone once more, breathing quietly. The gold in her eyes dimmed to warm brown. The voice inside her spoke one last time. They know now. The galaxy remembers. Ellen nodded. Then it's time I choose my own path. She turned toward the horizon where the stars shimmered faintly through the atmosphere. Ellen Ward, the name given to her by humans, still mattered. It was her connection to the world that had taught her compassion, weakness, and love. She whispered, the apex may have created me, but humanity made me whole. The voice smiled inside her mind. Then perhaps you are what we always hoped to be. Above her, the warlord's ship drifted in silence, powerless. No weapon fired. No order was given. Ellen looked up, meeting its shadow. Tell your kind, she said softly. The hunt is over. Then she walked away into the glowing desert. Neither human nor apex, but something greater. Something new. The wind carried her name across the sands, across the stars, across every world that remembered the stories of the hunters who vanished long ago. And somewhere in the far corners of the galaxy, others like her, sleeping remnants of the apex, began to stir. The age of fear had ended. The age of awakening had begun.